Okay, Max is here as well. And Grace. Grace was on last time. Bello, do you have a question? Or are you just saying hello? And you're on mute.
I'm only signifying my presence.
I couldn't understand what you were saying. Can you say it again?
I said I'm only signifying my presence.
Ah, okay, great. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, why don't we get started so we can finish everything today. Welcome, everybody, to the last synchronous Zoom session. I appreciate you attending. Share the content here. So this last week, what we've been doing is talking about climate storytelling. And the purpose of the project is to use climate storytelling as climate action. It's something that we can do to sort of take action. Because stories engage our emotions rather than, statistics. You can read all the statistics about climate change and it doesn't have the same impact as hearing somebody's story. Okay. Personal climate stories are the lived experience, helps others identify with us and what we care about. So hopefully through the project, we learn to care about the students and the people in each other's countries and around the world. And by interviewing people in your community, you are contributing to the story of us. And we're going to be doing this project for a while and trying to collect lots of different stories. And we all know, as we saw, that climate change is an urgent issue. And so we're trying to use climate stories to promote action. Okay, that's sort of our goal, is to get climate stories to promote action. And I want to share with you this quick video clip. You might have watched it, but maybe not. It's about how everybody has a climate story. And a little bit that you can do, like you might feel like you personally cannot change climate change, right? You can't solve climate change, but everything that everybody does has an impact. So let's watch this real quick.
We are constantly being bombarded by problems that we face, and sometimes we can get completely overwhelmed. The story of the hummingbird is about this huge forest being consumed by a fire. All the animals in the forest come out and they are transfixed as they watch the forest burning, and they feel very overwhelmed, very powerless, except this little hummingbird. It says, I'm going to do something about the fire. So it flies to the nearest stream, takes a drop of water, and puts it on the fire and goes up and down, up and down, up and down, as fast as it can. In the meantime, all the other animals, much bigger animals, like the elephant with a big trunk, could bring much more water. They are standing there helpless, and they are saying to the hummingbird, what do you think you can do? You're too little. This fire is too big. Your wings are too little. And you're big, so small. You can only bring a small drop of water at a time. But as they continue to discourage it, it turns to them without wasting any time and tells them, I am doing the best I can. And that, to me, is what all of us should do. We should always feel like a hummingbird. I may feel insignificant, but I certainly don't want to be like the animals watching as the planet goes down the drain. I will be a hummingbird. I will do the best I can.
Building your online business?
Okay, so the point is that regardless of your story, if you feel you have a little climate story to tell, or you can just do a little bit, every little bit helps. So we should act like the hummingbird and not like all of the other animals who are just standing around watching, the climate affect our planet like it is. Okay, and that's sort of the goal of our project. So last class, we watched the videos of the different climate stories. And so today we're going to discuss them. Okay, and I've got some discussion questions here. If you didn't see the climate stories, you can go back up here, or I guess it's on the week before, week 4. You can go back and go to the Google Drive, click on the Google Drive, and you can watch the stories again. Okay? Let me see if I can make this bigger for us to see. Okay, so the first question is, discuss the similarities and differences between the climate change experience between the two countries. What were some similarities or differences? As you are watching, okay?
One similarity I saw that a couple people.
Oh, wait, let me zoom in. I'm gonna. I'll stop sharing. I'm gonna zoom in on the speaker. Maybe. Okay, and zoom. Camera control. Oh wait, it's going on me. I don't want to do that. Okay, why don't you say your name and then your answer. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm Alexis, and one similarity I saw was that two people said that they're getting heavy rainwater, and that's also a problem here with the Florida videos. So they said that the storms are getting worse. So both of them storms and rain is getting more heavy, which is causing flooding and other problems. That was one similarity.
Okay, so flooding, more storms, more rainwater, more flooding. Anyone want to add to that? Okay, let me try and zoom. I'm going to leave the camera control up. Okay. Okay, go ahead. Say your name and.
All right, so I'm Danny, and going off of that, due to all these storms, something we have in common is that our properties get destroyed, not only homes, but also I know plantation. From my own climate change video, the person I interviewed, they had a home that was completely washed away, plants gone, everything's gone. So I know stories from Nigeria. You guys were also talking about how the high winds and with the rainstorms, it completely, your homes are gone as well. So I noticed that was a similarity, destruction within our property.
Okay, so more storms, and then that's leading to more property damage and damage of surrounding plants and animals. So people also spoke a little bit about animals. Okay. Let me know if you have a comment from Calabar, go ahead and raise your hand too. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm Kate. One of the similarities I noticed was that everyone talked about temperature, which I think is the first thing to notice of climate change because we do feel it every single day. And I noticed that almost all groups talked about it.
Right, I think every single story talked about the changing climate. And today, like, I didn't even wear a coat today. Mid-November and not wearing a jacket is very unusual. Okay, Bello, did you have a comment, or is your hand still up from before?
It's just about the similarities and differences I've been able to observe.
Okay, go ahead.
Majorly is like the similarity cut across both in Nigeria and over there in US. Basically, the heat, the loss in vegetation, loss of lives and properties. That is much more similar to the effects we actually do experience over here too. Just that the format at which it normally do occur is what is a little bit different. Like over here, we are not having issue of hurricane, and over there you have hurricane, but we have more flooding and drought over here. Those are some of the differences, but the effects generally, I think they are the same. Loss of life, properties, heat, there's increase in heat wave, and the likes. And at the moment, even in November, we are still experiencing rainfall, where we are supposed to be experiencing a harmattan. But rain is still falling, so we have more rainfall than usual. So just as one of the man that was interviewed, that was Michael Smart in Boston, Massachusetts, says there are more heat waves over there, and people are leaving their environment and trying to change where they live because of the heat and the dry environment over there. So we're also having similar experiences over here too.
Right, the one person said that they were maybe going to move because of some of the issues.
Exactly, they're leaving their place of residence to like leaving Boston to Chicago and stuff like that.
Right, right. And we sort of call them environmental refugees, and that seems like a big name for somebody who might just be moving from Boston to Chicago, but you know, we could call it that. Okay.
Yes, it's more or less like an environmental refugee actually. That's so painful.
Okay, Conrad.
Yeah, so I have leading kind of off of Bello's story, what he said. So I read a story in Calabar about like how trees are being chopped down for basically for more wood production in the US, but at the same time in Calabar, they are losing trees. So I'd say we're both losing vegetation, and we do have climate change effects, but in certain ways, where in the US we're losing trees due to mass production, more buildings in cities, which decreases the air quality for us to live in, which over time it's gonna get even worse, and it's gonna affect us all due to the air quality. And same with Calabar as well, since trees are being lost due to climate change. People around that area do rely on wood production for their community and also for their own profits as well to make money. But over time, people are moving away from those areas due to the loss of trees. So I feel like it affects both us in the United States and also in Calabar as well.
Yes, and in one of the groups, somebody posted video of, there was the kids in the water, swimming in the water, and then there were boats coming along, carrying wood from the forest. Like they had cut down wood and was bringing it in boats across. I'm not sure which group that was in. Does anybody remember? It was only in one of the groups, I think. But I thought that was an interesting video showing, showing that. Okay. Anybody else have their hand up about this? Okay, go ahead.
I just kind of like a similarity.
Wait, let me zoom the camera on you.
Okay.
I can here. Okay, there we go.
I just had a similarity. Like I noticed in like all of the stories and even like the interviews, it was like in order to like combat climate change, it wasn't like one person. Obviously, it was like all like big plans. Like all people would have to like work together, and like not just in the United States, like even in a different country, a different university like Calabar, like climate change isn't gonna get, like any better unless everyone actually works together and gets educated about it. Because like a lot of people, like don't know like how like bad it's getting. Like they just know it exists. Like if some people like would get educated on it, or like I don't know, it was more wide known or widespread, I feel like people would actually take more action to like try and fix it. So basically what I'm saying is like I just saw similarities like from the United States and even in all parts of the world. It's like climate change is real, and like you need to work together to actually fix it. It's not gonna be like one thing.
Right. And do you think having climate stories, people talking about their stories is a way to educate, or?
It's eye-opening for sure, like to see what other people are experiencing compared to your climate. Like our climate's different obviously than what they're experiencing in Calabar, but like it's still serious in both places, like it just might be more evident in somewhere where it's like more coastal, or like you can just see more of the actually like climate changing. Here it's more weather, like that's all we really have. Besides like maybe it might snow early or snow late, be cold early or be cold late, but besides that, it's not like you're noticing like sea level like rising or dropping. That's really all.
Yeah, in Chicago, we are in a good spot where we're not experiencing a lot of those things that it's noticeable. But here, some people might think it's good, right? If it's warmer in November, we don't have the bad snow. I mean, a lot of people like that.
Yeah.
So, sometimes people think that maybe it's even a good thing, that it's, warmer. Okay, any other similarities or differences that people want to talk about? I have to shut this down. Let's see what else one of the groups talked about insects and the increase in disease. Which group was that? Who wants to talk about that? Oh, it was the movie. It was the movie star interview, right? I don't remember who that was, but.
Yes, there is some increase in disease as a result of some of the effects of climate change arising from flooding. There you have stuff like contaminated or polluted water. So it affects the residents of those areas, whereby they are exposed to unsafe source of water drinking and other usage. And apart from that, too much of harmattan too cause some of these health disease like hernia, asthma, and the likes.
In addition to what Bello said, most of these areas, they are waterlogged. This water don't drain so easily. So since they are waterlogged, they are breeding sites to mosquitoes, they are breeding sites to other organisms because they aid some pathogens, and this in turn cause sicknesses like the malaria. That is why it's more it's more endemic in Nigeria, because of they are mostly breeding sites due to poor drainage systems. Most of the compounds are waterlogged. Thank you.
Yeah, we have a similar problem here. Nobody in our group, in the US groups talked about that, but we're seeing more cases of things like malaria and West Nile virus because it's pushing more north. Typically, only the southern part of the United States has problems with, mosquito, they call it insect vector diseases. Because it's warmer and they breed more there. But now since it's becoming warmer in places like Chicago, there are more breeding grounds with more flooding, higher water table. There's more water, standing water for the mosquitoes to breed. And now they're bringing these diseases to areas that really never had it before. So you can definitely see on maps where the disease in the US is really migrating north. So we do have a similar problem, but it wasn't brought up in any of the videos. Another thing you mentioned was about the standing water. I think in the one story from the lady from Florida, she was saying that the ground is becoming more saturated. So as they have more rains, you're getting more of the flooding, the storm surges, because the water doesn't have anywhere to go. It can't saturate into the ground because the ground is already saturated. So that's making the problem worse. So. What were some differences? Really, we didn't bring up too much differences, except maybe that the way that the rain and the water is coming. Here in the US, we have hurricanes, but there it's maybe a rainy season, but it's still kind of a similarity with more water. But what were some differences? Things only one location had versus the other.
Friends, in US you experience snow, while in Nigeria here there's nothing like snow. What we experience during this November time mostly is even the north. What we experience is this early morning dew that covers the whole places, and within a short period of time it disappears. So I think we don't experience snow here in Nigeria mostly, like compared to the US.
Right, yes. So the general climate is different with the snow and such. Regina, did you have something to say?
Yes, I do. Good evening, everyone. I think one of the things I actually noticed is in terms of food shortage. I think most of our stories back in Calabar emphasized more on the food shortage in terms of fluctuation in the rainfall pattern. We don't really have, the seasons are not steady. The patterns are always fluctuating. You can imagine that this is November, but we are still having heavy rainfall. So all these imbalances and fluctuations in the weather conditions actually is leading to high costs in food and causing great problems to farmers in terms of cultivation and the rest of it. I think that is one of the differences I spotted in our own story and the stories of students from DePaul University. Thank you.
Okay, yes, that's true. Several of the people in Calabar talked about access to food and being concerned about not having food. And I don't think anybody in the US stories talked about that. One group did talk about farms in Wisconsin. Whose group was that? What did they talked about it affecting the farms, but not really a concern about having access to food.
Yeah.
Let me zoom in maybe. Okay. Go ahead.
Alonzo, just the person that I interviewed, she lives in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. She was just saying that that it affects like it's more like an agricultural area than like we're used to here or where I live in the suburbs. At home, she was just saying it would affect it more, and she's a little worried about that. And I honestly don't remember exactly what she said, but she said it was a bit concerning for the area that she lives in.
Right, so it affects the farming here, but it sounded more like she was concerned about sort of the economic factor of that the farms would lose crops and such, rather than personally being impacted by not having food availability. So it's kind of an economic impact. Somebody mentioned in the chat that going back to the mosquitoes, in Calabar, they said because it's becoming very hot, people are sleeping outside more. And when you sleep outside more, that you have being attacked by mosquitoes more with a higher chance of capturing a disease from that. So do we remember that from the stories?
I can also contribute to that aspect of increasing mosquito bites. Actually, and with mosquito around.
You were a little bit choppy there. Can you maybe say it again with your camera off so we didn't really get the whole thing?
Can you hear me?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the camera is off now. Can you hear?
Yes.
Well, I am trying to align myself with that aspect of our findings here in Nigeria and Calabar in particular, that the rate at which we experience mosquito bites that is resulting to malaria infection high as compared to previous years, because now we have much of the rains and the environment is overflooded. Even the gutters around us, that give rise to much of the incidence of mosquito bites. And we are not comfortable with it because most of our children get sick, and it has never been like that. And the fact that we are challenged this side, especially even at dry seasons, whereby we're supposed to be free from mosquito bites, but we still experience mosquito. And even in the rural communities, they now are aware that climate is also affecting us.
So you think more flooding and it's more backed up in the gutters, and it's impacting more?
Yeah, there are always rains, water bodies around us, around our surroundings, that are breeding grounds for mosquito.
Okay. To add up to what my colleague just pointed out, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I think the group that said something about mosquito bite should be environmental group, either one. And they were talking about, our weather condition here is usually extreme. If you're having rain, it's extreme. If you're having heat, it's extreme. So they were trying to point out that it's either mosquito bite. So it's either way.
You cut out after you said it's more extreme heat.
It's going to be that is either extreme heat or the rainfall is extreme. So it's either this way or that way. So it's either you endure the heat inside your house or you go outside to sleep and endure the bites from the mosquito. So I think it was environmental group 1 that pointed that out.
Right. So it's you can't win either way. Yeah.
Yeah, whichever way.
Yeah, whichever way.
It's a two things, yeah.
Okay, Malama, did you want to add something? You have your hand up? Go ahead, you're on mute.
Yes, I do. I think it was in the person I interviewed mentioned mosquito bites. Drainages are not well made or well constructed. As such, we have settled water after rains. And outside that, we know mosquitoes breed well where there are vegetations. So we have lots of them around. So as a result of the heating up of rooms, people tend to sleep outside. When they sleep outside or with their doors open, the mosquitoes have
We
these
just
people
heard the
maybe
part
inside or as such resulting to sorry.
after you said people either sleep inside or sleep outside, then you cut off. So can you start again from that point?
Okay. I said, as a result of the heated rooms, the increase or the desire to sleep on the verandas, lighting you come down with malaria, which is an indirect effect of climate change.
Right, yeah. And that's not something that happens here usually, right? We don't sleep outside, and so we're not being impacted by that as much.
Like 3 or 4 fans.
Okay.
It's too hot.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, any other, okay, yeah, go ahead. I have the camera on you.
The difference that I noticed, or maybe I just didn't hear it in the Calabar interviews, but in the US, in the interviews, and obviously like the politics of it is kind of half the battle here. And I didn't really hear a lot of that from Calabar, so I don't know if that's a big difference. in the way that we think about climate change.
A lot of the stories here in the US talked about voting, going out to vote or going out to, having politics and the government, running for office. Somebody talked about running for office. So that was brought up more in the US about relying on our sort of government officials. Maybe because yesterday here was election day, we had our voting yesterday, so, maybe it was on everybody's mind, but that is something that we talk a lot about here is voting. What about in Calabar is, when you think about climate change and these impacts, do you think about voting and electing officials and so on?
Please, can you come again?
Please, go ahead.
We didn't get you right.
Go ahead.
We didn't get you. We didn't get the question.
Okay. So in the US stories, several people mentioned voting or electing officials that will help with climate change. And I don't think anybody in the Calabar stories mentioned, politics or elected officials or running for office as a solution. So can you comment on that?
Oh, okay. I think in our individual climate stories, I think Felicia pointed out something like that. But in the regular interview, I think we didn't talk about anything about voting or political officers or office holders in politics should help in any way. I think we didn't mention that. It was actually a big difference, probably because our elections will be coming up next year. So we are actually campaigning now. So we've not started anything about voting. I'm sure that was why we didn't point out anything about that. But I think in the individual climate story, somebody pointed that out or mentioned it.
Okay, yeah, when our voting was yesterday, so it's fresh in the minds of everybody right now, is the voting issue.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay, I think I noticed another difference.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
I
noticed
want to.
another difference.
Why don't we let
Okay, go ahead.
talk? Yeah.
Okay. Okay, go ahead. Finish up. Finish up.
Okay. I said I actually have another thing I noticed in our stories.
Go ahead. You're cutting out. We can't hear you. Yeah, Regina, we can't hear you. We didn't hear you at all. Maybe turn off your camera for the bandwidth.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, ma'am.
We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, I was saying that another difference I spotted or I noticed was that the students from DePaul University actually mentioned some of these extreme weather conditions like hurricane, like wildfire, earthquake. I don't know if I heard something like that, but some of these conditions we've not experienced it yet in our part of the world. So I don't think we mentioned it in our own interview, but I think one or two persons actually mentioned it in their own interview. I think that was another difference I noticed.
Okay. Yes. Okay, go ahead, Yang Nelson.
Okay. I want to really spot out something. Our student and also your student over there, I noticed we have not actually, the both sides have not actually captured the area or talk about the area of the other issue that has to do with municipal waste. You know, most of the municipal waste also come as a result of when most of these, our fruits, our seasonal fruits are not coming out at when they're supposed to come out due to the climate change. You know, some season we have specific season for particular fruit, and we have other season for some specific. Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello.
Go ahead. Go ahead. We can hear you.
Okay. I noticed that the municipal waste also contributes so much to the issues of malaria that we have actually talked about. Most of the fruits also can be eaten and littered around, leading to the breeding of most of these mosquito larvae. They take their time and breed and also impact or infect the people or infect human, leading to a lot of malaria issues. and other sicknesses that are related to that. I'm particularly concerned about the municipal waste, the control, the awareness also. I've not actually, though most of the group have not actually captured that area. That is what I actually noticed. Thank you.
Or she'll say something now. Yeah.
Let him finish.
I'm true.
Okay. Yeah.
Have something to say, yeah?
In one of the videos that were posted about the flooding that was experienced in the nearby area to Calabar, they talked about how there was a lot of municipal waste that was blocking some of the means for the water to flow away, and that was contributing to some of the flooding. It wasn't in one of the climate interviews, it was in one of the videos somebody posted about the flooding.
Okay.
I send this videos.
Okay, any last comments about?
Yes. I have some comments to make. Shall I go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. From my own stories, when I read this, I listened to them. I discovered that in the US and Calabar, there are some differences. For the US, the seasons are steady, but climate change has actually altered seasons in Nigeria, particularly in Calabar. That is why you can see that from October, later part of September and October, we had high flooding. As a result of climate change. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
All right. So now, we saw that in the US, there are measures, fast measures to cope the essence of climate change. But for us here, it is not as fast as that. Food security is really down. And the effect of climate change is actually, because it altered our seasons, we are not too sure the seasons of next year and when planting season will actually start. Because if rain had entered November to this time, where we're going to Hamilton season, it means that January will be altered and can affect our seasons of crops. So climate change is actually affecting us here in Nigeria. And because of this flooding that is happening now, the time for erecting buildings will also be shifted and can also get into the rainy season by next year. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yep.
yeah, we hear you.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm wondering what you think if the US is experiencing that too, and we just are ignoring it, or we just aren't paying attention, or are we coming up with other ways or, around that, like bringing food in from elsewhere, or what? Do you think that we experience that food insecurity here because of climate change too? Nobody mentioned it, but yeah. What do you guys in the class here think?
But in your videos, we didn't see any of them talking about that. Everybody was so positive. But for us here, I think we are more realistic with climate change issues in our country.
Right. But I'm wondering, is it because we just aren't paying attention, like, or it's not happening? Okay, wait. Let me zoom in on you and then.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
I think the way that we most experience food insecurity is through pricing. So if it's not coming locally and as cheaply as we can make it in the US and ship it off locally, we're going to import it from elsewhere, and therefore there's going to be like significantly higher prices, which means that people can't afford some food, and then therefore more food insecurity comes from that. I don't think the day-to-day person is seeing it as much supply-wise. The grocery stores are still full. You're still able to access the food, but something is going to be a few dollars more than what you would expect, and therefore you can't afford it. I know I've had to stop by in certain foods since I've even just started living alone, simply because of prices, and that's partly due to inflation, but also supply locally has greatly declined due to climate change, and therefore prices are going to go up.
Right, so here in the US, the food supply is being sort of impacted, which is increasing the cost. So it's like the food is still there, it's still available, but people might be priced out of being able to buy certain things because it, costs too much. Okay, let me zoom over to you. Okay, right as you're yawning, I got on you.
I think an example of like stuff like that is like our staples per se. Like a lot of articles have been coming out of what grocery prices are now versus what grocery prices were in like 2015, 2016. And I think kind of what you said about just noticing different things such as like maybe the farms are affected, so therefore bread is now like bread is like $4 a loaf now, which is kind of insane. Like bread is not supposed to be that much. Or like things like corn. You used to be able to buy like 8 ears of corn for $1, and now corn's like $1 an ear. Or even things like limes and lemons used to be like 10 cents a piece, but now they're like 25, 50 cents a piece. And I think that even ties back into politics as a whole, because a lot of people say like that it's not necessarily like inflation, it's more so just prices are raising. So I think that's a huge difference. But I also would think like the difference, I don't know too much about Calabar, but I would also imagine the difference in where we get our food matters a lot too. Like I don't know what the situation is the situation is like in Calabar, if they're like walking to the store and then buy a whole basket full of groceries at one place. But that's how I would think most Americans go and get their food. Like they have one store they go to religiously. They notice when prices change because they go to that same store pretty often. They notice when things are not at that store because most people have a solid store they enjoy. And then they would notice the things like that. So I don't know if that's a big difference, but I would imagine it is.
What do you think there? I also think that what we eat, like I think buy more different things than, because I think when we talked at the first class, everybody, what their favorite food was, everybody I think said rice. Didn't everybody say that? Where we had different things that everybody sort of liked. So I think if the price of one thing gets too much, then you just buy something else that would be maybe cheaper. So you're not as feeling as food insecure because there's something else that you could buy. Whereas maybe if the food isn't there, then there's nothing else to choose from, right? Is that what you were saying? In terms of food availability. Okay, let's go to another question. Let's see. So let's go to number 4. What are some culturally appropriate approaches to responding to the impacts from climate change? What are some things we can do? Let's be positive and talk about solutions. What are some solutions? Or even just things like we said that we personally can do, being little hummingbirds. What are things that we can do as opposed to, trying to solve the whole thing? What are some things? Anybody have?
Yes. In Nigeria, our locals are engaging in agroforestry a lot now. and their traditional laws and taboos are helping to prevent the already existing forest from being destroyed.
So did you say going to traditional methods of agroforestry is a solution? I think you're frozen.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead. I think you're muted.
Okay, can I speak?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I think he was actually suggesting that agroforestry is part of the measures we can employ to help check some of these impacts of climate change. If I heard him clearly, I think that's one of the things he's suggesting. And
How can you get mine?
on my own part, I think from my own climate story, I was so passionate about we trying to start from our own end, maybe educating people around us, because a lot of people are still very ignorant about this climate change and the impact it has on the environment. So everybody can start by educating people around your neighborhood, even in your workplace, at school, where you find yourself. I think it will go a long way to help. And then back here in Nigeria, we have this, I would say, ugly attitude that we drop things anywhere, on the road, on our gutters, wherever we find ourselves. You can maybe have this what we call sachet water. You take it and then you just drop the paper, be the waterproof, anywhere. We don't have this culture of trashing things properly. So I think if we can equally help to educate people on how to trash things, don't throw things around, because one person throws, the second person, and before you know, it's blocking our drainages, and this is one of the major causes of flooding. So I think that will actually go a long way. Even here too, we are trying to reserve some of our forests. We have our national parks. We try to encourage people to plant trees. I think that too will help. Even within your house, we try to see how we can encourage people to plant trees around. I think it will go a long way to help.
Okay, good. Any other suggestions?
Let me
Oh yeah, go ahead.
say something.
You're a little bit hard to
For the
hear.
one that posted the video, and it is worrisome that most of our hello.
Hello, go ahead.
I said I was the one that posted those videos. Yes.
The ones on the water?
It is a little bit. Yes, I did. I want to refer you back to those videos. You saw those videos, the one the children are swimming, education of some of that is the effect climate change, that some of those streams that we used to use for swimming, like you saw in the other side, they are no longer there again. And the other side where you saw those children swimming, the economic implication is that the fishermen that use that place, those streams, for their economic activities, for fishing, those fishes are all migrated. Before now, 4 years back, those water bodies are used for economic activities and they generate income for their livelihood. And those things are far running away, they are far. And here, in spite of the fact that we are seeing the impact of climate change through this flooding around us, our attitude, I say, one thing, my model is knowledge, attitude, and action. Those three postulations need to be put in place. I realize that even if we are aware, we have not even put our knowledge into practice by actually acting on how to mitigate this effect of climate change on us. Because you still see people going to disperse waste in water bodies, releasing waste in gutters, and they still go ahead to block the runways, thereby causing more flooding. I think we need a conscious effort. Like for me as a person, I am an advocate of the environment. I am an apostle of the environment. So each time I see things around the environment, I speak the environment, I act the environment. So I encourage all of us to be advocates of the environment by speaking the environment, by acting the environment, by defending the environment. We have environmental defenders because wherever we are, be conscious of that. Because
Okay.
even our laws are not effective. So we need traditional laws to be able to curtail people from impacting more, even on forest roots, reduce the impact on forest roots and others, so that our future will be secured. Thank you.
Okay, one thing that you said that resonated with me, I like your mantra of knowledge, attitude, and action. I think that's a good statements. One thing that we find here is that people have some knowledge about climate change, but it doesn't translate into any kind of action, right? They aren't willing to do any kind of taking steps, personal steps to do that. Like they know maybe shopping locally, local food, say, is better for the environment, but still buy, strawberries in winter, or something like that. So knowledge translating into action is a very difficult thing here. Any other suggested solutions? Max, did you want to say something?
Yeah, so one of the things that our group had talked about, or our interviewer had talked about, was like ethical consumption of like food. So like livestock emissions account for like a third of all greenhouse gas emissions. And I think that like 50% of all land in the United States is used to like feed cattle. And so like building a diet or promoting a diet that's less reliant on like livestock, particularly like cows and pigs, can really help to break down those those emissions that are coming from livestock. And also, like when we think about that, 50% of all land in the United States is used just to feed cows instead of like feeding humans. Well, when climate change starts to affect the Earth's ability to grow different types of food, like we don't want to be, giving up half our land just to feed cows. So considering like ethical consumption about every day, about how we eat and the choices we make about like what food to buy and what sectors to support.
Right, okay. Good, yeah, so choice of our food web that we eat is big. We do have a huge meat consumption here in the US. And that's another way where people know that, but aren't really willing to take action and change what they eat. Yeah, I don't think beef was that common in Nigeria. It wasn't really on the menu a lot from what my experience, but that's, limited experience. There were other kinds of food, but not beef as much as it is here in the US. Okay, let's see. Let's see, how much time do we have left? So we have time for one more question. Let's do this one. How did the stories make you feel? How do you feel about the future? And do you see any sort of silver lining for the future? What's your feelings after hearing some of these stories? Or just in general about climate? zoom in on you here. Let me stop the share.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
All right.
In my opinion, it's, and I think I noticed this in all the stories, or most of the stories, like we know that there's not a end-all solution to all of this, and I think, especially in the United States, if you look at our political climate, it's not looking up. It looks like, just not a lot can get done. There's a lot of things proposed, there's a lot of things here and there, but it's not great across the board politically, and we have a lot of reliance on political figures and large corporations to make changes to our climate, because we know that that's the largest hurt, so the largest change is going to come from there. And if, I don't know, I work in political journalism, so I have been covering the election and I've covered the candidates and everything. So I don't know if it's just my involvement in it, but it doesn't look great. So the stories are a little disheartening because it's like we see all of this stuff like weather and, flooding and temperature and everything. And that's not stuff that we could just start eating different food or start consuming differently, and that's going to change that. So it is a little disheartening to see all of that kind of come together. And then in my experience, looking at just our political climate in the United States and seeing how it's really, really difficult to make large changes and make impacts over time.
So do you feel disheartened? And do you feel like you have any sort of agency to make any change?
I mean, in my line of work, I can't necessarily advocate for anything based on my ethical code that I'm required to follow. But definitely, I've worked on like the General Iron situation in Chicago. Working with that was really like motivating to watch how people could do that and people could make that local change. So I think nationally it's a little more difficult to do. So it maybe inspires me to work in that area more, but like politically, I am not in any way allowed to advocate for that, unfortunately.
Okay. Anybody else?
Okay. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. From my own end, when you listen to all the climate stories from the US and from Calabar, from Nigeria, the stories are a bit frightening. You get a bit scared, but at the end of the day, I'm hopeful because there are a lot of awareness in terms of climate change. So many persons are involved in trying to bring out measures of mitigating climate change. A lot of non-governmental NGOs, they are all aware. I think people are becoming aware and conscious of climate change. So I'm really hopeful, and I believe that there's a silver lining, there's light at the end of the tunnel after all this. If everybody sits up and try to contribute his or her own quota in his own little way, I think a lot of achievement will be realized at the end of the day. So I'm hopeful, and I know that something positive will definitely come up in the near future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Malama, go ahead.
Okay. Well, the fact is this: when everybody is involved, we have hope. But when once we allow some persons slack as a result of or not believing that there's something for them to do as far as climate change is concerned, then we are doomed. So all I am advocating for is we keep on educating people, telling people the importance of knowing about climate change, knowing what to do. If we don't do this, then we do not have a future at all. The pace at which the temperatures are rising, things are changing in the environment. That's my take on it. Thank you.
So you think that as soon as people feel like they don't have any agency in solving the issue, then we're in trouble?
We are in trouble when people don't get involved, when all of us don't get involved. Everybody needs to get involved, whether you are a climate expert or not. We need to know, we need this knowledge, we need to know what to do. If we do not know what to do, and like I heard from some of your videos where you start you see it as a major policy for you electing people into offices. If all of us begin to do that, so that even our leaders are aware of this, because the major play comes from them. If we do not do this, so that our leaders are involved, even the common man.
Yeah,
you
cut out a little bit.
The world is doomed. So we all need to get involved.
Yeah,
Sorry, what did he say?
Oh, I just was saying you cut out a little bit at the end there. But I think one of the stories here from the US, they talked about running for office. So you could be in the, one of the decision makers. So yeah, go ahead.
Yes, yeah, that's possible because if you as an individual have the mind to go out and be elected into office, and then the common man does not know that you were supposed to be elected into the office because you know or you have what to do as far as climate change is concerned, then you are not being elected into that office. Another person is elected into the office who does not know anything concerning climate change. Then nothing is going to be done. So my advocacy is every man, even the common man, should know. So if we are electing people into offices, we should know that, okay, we are electing people who are climate experts or who have knowledge about climate. That's my take.
Or are willing to listen to climate experts themselves. Okay, go ahead, Maria.
Yeah, I noticed when people were giving their emotional response about climate change, they were really hesitant when they were talking about the future, because it's like they really hope for positive change, but with what we're seeing in like our world leaders and things like that, it's kind of unknown, because I feel like such little change has been made within the past few years and such drastic changes have already happened. And so I feel like a lot of people were talking about relying on their community members. I feel like a lot of people talked about receiving support from like neighbors and other community members and kind of rely on them rather than larger figures in their environment. And so like that's something that I've noticed in my community as well. And that, the bonding of community members and our experiences has helped make some change rather than kind of seeing large changes within like our political climate.
Yeah, and if you look at the hurricane story that we just had, the government really did very little for the people who have been impacted, and it has been a lot of the community members have been supporting each other.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we've got about, 20 minutes. So maybe we can talk about this. What role do you see yourself playing in mitigating climate change? Do you think you have something to contribute? How do you see your own chances of being able to do something about climate change? Similar to the last question, but what do you see yourself doing? Okay, let me zoom in down on you here. Okay, go ahead.
I think that, like, personally, there's things that we can all do, like small things that we can all do, like try to eat less meat or, not create as much trash and stuff like that. But I think most importantly, to make a large scale difference, it's kind of just like what everyone's been saying, but it's a lot about voting for candidates that believe in climate change and have proposals that will help climate change. That's where the large scale differences gonna come in. I mean, because we can all still personally try to do things to like eliminate our footprint, but we all, like, it's also like our responsibility to politically vote for people that we believe are going to help the climate change issue.
Okay, yeah. Good. Anybody else have anything else to add? What?
Oh, okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, as I earlier pointed out, the question is what I can do as a person. Apart from looking at the larger picture, which is voting people that are climate experts or who are, have knowledge about climate change into office, I think in our own little way, as I keep saying, it's just keep educating people, as we've been talking about. Educate people, let people be aware of this climate change. And then on your part, you can equally try to see how you can plant a tree around your neighborhood. Plant a tree. Let's start doing something. I think if everybody, just small like that, I think a major difference will be achieved. So that's my own take on it. Let people start getting aware of these little things like dumping refuge. Don't throw things on gutters so that you won't block drainage ways. Don't empty garbage on rivers, streams, any water bodies. I think if we start small from these little things around our neighborhood, we will achieve a lot while we keep voting for people that are conscious about climate change into office. I think in our own little way, let's start doing something. That's my own. Thanks.
Okay, good. Go ahead, Malama.
Yes, we should all know that we have responsibilities. Yeah, just like the last speaker just said, outside voting people into offices. From our little homes, with our spouses, with our friends, with our loved ones, we need to talk to one another. With the way we manage waste in our homes tells how much we love our environment. And then as you walk on the road and then you see people who are not climate friendly, you should try as much as possible to make them become climate friendly. Plant a tree in your home and give advice when it is necessary. As of now, all of us seated in this class are believed to have a knowledge about climate. So if all of us here will talk to 1, 2, 3 persons, you discover that the campaign is going to go wider. So that should be our own little way of contributing to climate change. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And once more, I want to also add that because I noticed from the videos we shared from the responses from people, there are some persons that talked about migration. So migration is not the solution to the problem because we're talking about the future. We're looking at the future of tomorrow, the posterity to come after us. We don't need to migrate, rather we stay back and adapt with the climate because as we felt, if there's direct impact on us as a result of the climate, so we know where to start. If it's because of the trees that were cut down, we shouldn't migrate from that very environment. We should stay back and at least start a campaign by either planting a tree or creating the awareness. And if it's because of deaths that must have blocked either gutters or other channels that were supposed to be a channel for water runoff, we should stay back rather than migrating. So I think, and as well, like the energy we consume, because even the poor, they contribute little to climate change. It's mostly the rich. So if there's action plans that will start from the rich first, like the appliances they use in their homes, the energy they consume is too much. A poor man cannot afford such. So if there will be like a strict rule on the elites to curtail their use of energies, then we can, I think, it will also serve better Thank you.
Okay, I think that's a good place to end the discussion about similarities and differences on the topic of energy, because that's what our whole class has been about energy use and its impacts on climate change. For the last few minutes, I want to talk about the global learning experience itself, just reflect on. Okay, so let's reflect on the process. So why don't you describe your favorite memory from the global learning experience, or what did you learn from the experience? What did you enjoy? What did you learn by interacting with each other rather than, reading about climate change in your textbook? Or did you not enjoy anything about it? Hopefully there's something good everybody can say.
Hello.
Hello, go ahead.
Hello. Yeah, I want to really appreciate the program of this collaboration. It has really exposed us to understand that the issue of climate change now, they are global issues and they have global concern. So there will be a collaboration in the manner and strategy in which we have to tackle this issue of climate change. So by sharing ideas, it now exposes us more to the issues that surround us as a nation, as a country, as those from the same area and those within the globe. So this program, I encourage us and I urge us to keep it up so that we'll be more trained on how to address this issue of climate change, not just speaking them in theory, but the practical way. What do we do at the end of this program to be able to contribute our own quota in the tackling and fighting against the menace of climate change? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
To me, the GLA experience has been a very amazing experience. And so far, it has exposed us to various climate change issues, how to handle the various issues. And we've learned a lot during this program. And I'm very grateful. I'm happy I was part of the program. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I really enjoyed the group chat part of it. It felt like really personal, like the way that Zooms kind of don't really. And it was cool, like getting everyone's information on there. And like, especially when people would send like little videos or pictures like outside of the class, especially from Calabar, of like just what was going on. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, good. Okay, Malama, go ahead.
Okay. Climate change is not just about theory. It's also practical. And then it's not just about where you come from alone. It's knowing what is happening around the globe. And this has given us an opportunity to be able to learn not just the climate within our place, what's happening within our place, but outside our place, outside our continent. So I really, really appreciate. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Maggie.
Yes.
Hello.
Holly, go ahead.
Yes, so just to say, very exciting program for all of our students. Through the interactions they have had, we have been able to have a knowledge of what is happening in the US, and those in the US have been able to have a knowledge about what is happening in Africa, especially in Nigeria. So it's a worthwhile experience, and we hope that this collaboration will continue. I actually wanted to make a contribution from all that was being said earlier with respect to the role that individuals or groups can adopt or employ in order to mitigate climate change. Of all that was said, there were some few issues that were not raised. For example, the issue of organic farming, because organic farming enhances or promotes carbon sequestration, which limits the emission of greenhouse gases, basically CO2, into the atmosphere, which is a major greenhouse gas. And then, yes, somebody raised the issue of the use of clean energy sources as a check. And if effective government policies are put in place to reduce the emission of greenhouse gases, was carbon dioxide, methane, hydrofluorocarbons, it will go a long way to check climate change. And then being environmental friendly will also go a long way to check climate change. And then the issue of deforestation being checked, indiscriminate deforestation being checked, especially from the level of government officials. But same lawmakers are the ones that break the law. So this sensitization should be at all levels, from the common man to top government officials, in trying to say that we check climate change, especially through checking deforestation and then practicing afforestation or re-afforestation, agroforestry, and so forth. So those were the few contributions I actually wanted to make. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, maybe, let's see if there's anything else that I wanted to. Okay, let's just end on this one. How has your awareness of global issues been impacted by a global learning experience? How has this increased your, awareness of different global issues?
Can I repeat the question again?
Anybody? Go ahead.
It's been interesting to get to know the specifics of like a country's climate change problems versus just like generally like the continent of Africa is dealing with this, this, and this, or like Europe is dealing with this, like to really like hear from a specific community and like get the physical proof of what's going on. That's so different than what we're dealing with. It's been interesting.
Yeah. Okay, let me see. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree, like with the community part especially, like because like you just get to kind of like figure out what's going on in other people's lives, like, and it's more personal, like especially like you were saying in the chat, you'd get like stuff even outside of the class of like floods or like what's going on in the community or what happened, and like if you never got that experience, you'd never know like that knowledge, or you'd never figure out that what's going on in their lives. So I thought it was pretty cool that you're able to like firsthand experience like what someone else is going through and like see their experience and their point of view for it.
Okay, well, I want to thank everybody for participating. We want to thank everybody and give everybody a round of applause for all of their work. Thank you. And thanks for participating when you were not meeting in classes. We appreciate that, for making this work, under the circumstances. So we do appreciate it. So thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
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 Bye. Love you all.
Bye. See you later.
Bye.
See you later.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.